At the end of this month, the USDA will update its forecast for farm income in 2017. The agency's current estimate for this year, released in August, showed a slight bounce, projecting net farm income 3% higher than in 2016. Purdue ag economist Brent Gloy talked with us recently in Omaha about costs and returns for crop producers going into 2018. We started our interview by asking about an earlier conversation we had in January. When we interviewed Brent at the Fremont Corn Expo, he said farmers and ranchers needed to be prepared to weather this tight economic situation for at least the next 3 to 5 years. When we talked again in late September, we asked if anything about that thought had changed.
Unfortunately, no, I don't think so. I think, as you look at ag cycles, they tend to have long troughs, and I think the good news, is that maybe we're at the bottom of kind of the income trough. So I think that is somewhat good news. But the next few years, I think we're gonna be a time of, chance to make some money every now and then, chance to lose some money every now and then, and so we're going to have to be really good managers to kind of make it through the next 3 to 5 years, I think.
Talking about that income maybe bottoming out, and we've talked about it with Tina Barrett and David Widmar before, what keys do you see that make you say the bottom has been reached?
Well, one good thing I think that's really positive is that cost structure, particularly on corn and soybeans, has worked its way a lot lower, and that's a really positive sign. So the prices that are required for farmers to make economic profits are a lot lower. Somewhere around $4 a bushel will generate some economic profits, which just a few years ago that number was well over $4.50. So I think we've worked our cost structure lower, and I think that's one of the really positive things. The other thing is that we've been dealing with some pretty big grain stocks, and there seems to be a pretty strong demand base that we put in place. So we're able to find things to do with the big crops that we have had, and that I think is encouraging.
Tell me specifically what costs are helping farmers and if there are any that aren't doing so well right now.
The biggest cost reduction we've seen is in fertilizer prices, particularly nitrogen. And right now, nitrogen prices again look to be soft. So I think that's a really good thing for farmers. It's encouraging that we're seeing that cost reduction. On the other hand, seed prices have been pretty strong and stable. Chemical prices, I think there's maybe some softness in chemical, but the expenditures that people are putting out on chemicals has not declined because weeds are becoming just more problematic. So when we look at the variable costs and what might change, I think fertilizer is where the hope for the biggest cost savings come. And then I think that will be partly influenced by how many acres of corn go in.
So what about fixed costs?
On fixed costs, you're dealing with land and you're dealing with equipment. And we'll start with equipment. And what most farmers have done the last couple of years is they just quit. They just quit buying equipment. And that's helped their cash flow quite a bit. The problem is that you can only do that so long. And so for a while, I used to say that farmers at the prices we were at were paying for either their land or their equipment, but not both. And I think most of them chose to pay for their land and delay equipment purchases. And we can only do that for so long. And I think you're going to start to see some of that change. People might have to spend some more money on equipment again, but it's going to be really important to do that wisely and make good investments there.
In this off season, what do you think it would be valuable for producers to look at when they go back to their books and think about 2018?
Well, I think first thing, look at your cash flows and your financial situation. What's your liquidity levels? Where are you at? And really try and understand and assess, where you're at financially. And then look at your cost structure and see if there are things that you can do, places to cut, to kind of work through what looks at this point to be another kind of tough year.
Yeah, I think this year has been a year where the conversation about people exiting the industry has been very real. Are there some warning signs or some levels where you think farmers need to say, this is a problem?
Yeah, I think, if you're having trouble with debt service, that's the biggest thing. So once So it gets to a point where we're having a really hard time servicing our debt. That's a major warning sign, because even though there might be equity on the balance sheet, if we can't generate the cash flow to do it, we can borrow against that equity and refill our cash reserves, but if we just burn through them again, we're not really solving the fundamental problem. So we really have to work to get the cost structure down so that we can make the business sustainable for the long run. So cost structure is the most important thing long term to fix. In the short term, understanding liquidity and how your debt service shapes up is really important.